Hey guys, what's up? All right, happy Tuesday. We are at day 9 of the 12 days of Christmas, and I'm going to try to make this super quick today. I know sometimes I like to ramble on. I get so passionate and carried away about what I'm talking about, but my mom is here for the holidays. She just got in this morning, and so I want to get through this quickly and then spend some good quality time with her before the kids come home from school. So I will get right into it. Today is going to be a great thing for you guys to, if you are a expecting mom or a new mom, I think this is going to be very useful information for you. This 5 pillars of motherhood that I'm going to be sharing with you today comes right out of the Modern Mommy Prep School curriculum. So for those of you who don't know, we have a podcast and we have a course called Modern Mommy Prep School, which is essentially a mindset prep. It's like a place that you go when you want to be truly prepared for motherhood. It doesn't cover the prenatal, like the physical stuff. This is more of the mindset stuff, how to be the intentional parent and make sure you're feeling really confident and not losing yourself and making sure that your marriage is not getting put on the back burner. So this is the type of stuff we do in the course and the types of things that we talk about on the podcast if you listen to the podcast. So these 5 pillars I'm going to share with you are really the cornerstones of our coaching program, which is like a 4-week long process. So if you come to Modern Mommy Prep School and you purchase the course, you will go through like a 4-week if you purchase the course with the coaching, you will go through like a 4-week process, and we cover all of these pillars in extreme detail and extreme depth. But today, I'm going to just give you some quick nuggets from them just to get you thinking. Anybody with young kids, I would say this is going to be valuable for you as well. And if you're listening to this and you're a little bit older or you've got older kids and you don't think this applies to you, I would love for you to tag somebody who you think could use this information right now, because it is definitely beneficial. And anybody who takes the course and goes on to have children has said that they definitely felt much more confident going into parenting and also feel like they had a better experience. Not to mention the first pillar, which is the self, really planning for that before your baby comes can help you to prevent postpartum depression. So lots of great nuggets I'm going to be sharing. Okay, so let's get right into it. The first pillar of the self, or the first pillar of motherhood, is the self. Okay, so we've heard it all before. We hear those moms who say, I've completely lost myself once I had a baby or babies. Their kids get to starting kindergarten and the mom has completely doesn't even know who she is anymore. And oftentimes it kicks in a lot later. They get so consumed with their kids being in school, or maybe they've got a second baby on the way, and then, one baby's in school and the other one's on the way, and you're just in that cycle for a long time, and then suddenly the kids are teenagers and you're like, oh, completely lost myself. So the first pillar of motherhood is the self. This is something you want to be thinking about very early on before you even have a baby. And the best way to kind of put some stuff in place to prevent you from losing yourself is to really start getting anchored in who you are, what lights you up. What are the things that you do now that you absolutely need to stay healthy, mind, body, and soul? Figure out what those are. Figure out what your passions are. Figure out what the non-negotiables are for you. Like if you know, for instance, that you do not do well on very little sleep, this would be something that you really want to think about ahead of time, because you're going to be sleep deprived as a new mom. So, there are a lot of people who don't need that much sleep, right? They can get by on 5-6 hours. But if you are like, I absolutely cannot function unless I have my 9 hours, then you want to be thinking ahead of time about lining up some support so that you are able to get the rest that you need. So it's just a small example. Or for instance, if you're somebody like, for me, I'll share an example from my own life. I left my friends and family to come live where I am now and marry my husband. And one of the things that, for the 5 years that we were married before we had kids, that really I needed to nurture like my soul and my mind and my body was getaways with my girlfriends. once or twice a year was kind of the minimum requirement for me. And that's something I knew ahead of time. Like, I knew that I needed to maintain those friendships and those relationships, and that's something that I really wanted to do after my kids came along. Because what happens is you think that's not going to happen to you, and then your kids come along, and then you do end up just putting that stuff by the wayside, right? Whereas if you make the intention ahead of time, so I set the intention ahead of time, I spoke about it with my husband. That's the other thing. If you're married, you need to be on the same page as your partner, and to say, look, these are the things that I need to make sure that I stay me, and make sure that you're getting their buy-in so that they can support you. So for me, that was a girls' trip to Las Vegas when my twins were, I want to say 7 or 8 months old, and we stuck to that. It would have been easy if I hadn't thought about it ahead of time to just, when the time came, say, you know what, I've got kids now, I'm not going to do the Vegas trip this year. But it was something I had thought about ahead of time, discussed with my husband, and so he made sure that I did that, and I did. And not only was it amazing for me, it was also amazing for him to be able to be with the boys by himself for 4 days and feel like he's got this. And it also gave me extreme confidence to know that he's capable of taking care of them in the same way that I am. So that's just a small example of how you need to be thinking ahead. Now, if you are a mom who already has kids and you're like, too late, I already lost myself, I'm going to give you a little exercise to try to get back to that. Okay, so this is what I always share with women who are saying that they've lost themselves and they don't even know how to get back to where they used to be. Sit down and ask yourself, what was it that used to light me up before I had kids? What did I love to do? What were the things I took pleasure in doing? What was I good at? What were my passions? What were my non-negotiables before I had kids? And if you don't remember, ask your husband, ask your parents, ask your friends, ask people who know you, what are the things that they remember about you before you became a mom. Ask your husband what he fell in love with, okay? So start getting back to that pre-baby person, and then start working on making sure that you get that back, okay? So that's the first pillar of motherhood, the self. The next pillar of motherhood is the partner or the marriage. So if you're married, this is totally going to apply to you. If you're a single parent, this section may not apply to you as much. But what I always say is, and I actually have a great podcast episode on this. I think it's called Prioritizing Your Marriage. Prioritizing Your Marriage Once You Become a Parent, or something like that. It's with Carrie Sharp. She's a communication and relationship expert. And we talk about the fact that the parents are actually the foundation of the family. And that a lot of times when kids come along, you put each other, especially mom, will put dad on the back burner, and it really just doesn't do anybody any good. So you need to discuss very early on how you are going to make sure that you prioritize each other and set that good example for your kiddos, to see that mom and dad are the center of this family unit and not the other way around, okay? In our home, our kids know they are not the center of the universe. Our family unit revolves around mom and dad, not our kids. Without our relationship being healthy, without myself being healthy, right? The self and the marriage are kind of like the two pillars that everything else kind of stands on. So you need those to be in a really good, healthy place. So talking about that stuff ahead of time, how are you going to prioritize your marriage? How are you going to show the kids that your marriage is a priority? And just getting on the same page about everything. So this is where you bring the partner in to talk about the first pillar, which is the self, and then get the partner on board with the next 3 pillars that I'm going to talk about, and make sure you guys are both on the same page, okay? So this is a really important one to do early on, because you don't want to be that mom that just gets so consumed momming that you're 5 years down the road, you wake up and your marriage is completely, it's not what it used to be. So it's really important to hold on to that. So planning ahead of time is the best, but it's never too late to start. Now, the third pillar of motherhood is the past, okay? We can get really, really deep here, but I'm just going to share a quick tip with you. How you were raised, whether you had the healthiest, most event-free upbringing or not, right? We all know there's people who've had a very troubled upbringing or a very troubled past, and then there's some people who just have been able to float through and not really have anything jump out. Regardless of which you fall under and where you fall on the spectrum, how you were raised and your past absolutely affects how you are going to parent yourself, and same with your partner. I would be asking myself, and I did ask myself, how was I raised? What are the things that stand out to me? What did I love and what didn't I love about my childhood experience? What are the things I want to continue doing? What are the things I don't want to do? And have the same conversation with your partner and get him to dig into his past and have a dialogue around that, because your past is absolutely going to affect your parenting. And I always encourage people to be very intentional and purposeful parents, okay? Do not parent by accident. Don't just parent on the fly and let things happen to you. Like I always say, don't let kids happen to you. We have to happen to our kids. So in order to really parent with intention and raise the kinds of kids we want to raise and parent the way we want to parent, that confidence of like feeling like I got this is going to come from these pillars that I'm talking about. So the past is a good one to be digging into. And there are maybe all sorts of things that come up that you didn't even know about your partner that could potentially affect your parenting. So you want to get on the same page, okay? The next one is the present, okay? The fourth pillar of motherhood, the present. It's so easy, guys, to get caught up in like, you know, what's the nursery going to look like, and buying the cute baby clothes and thinking ahead about all the fun stuff about having a baby. But very rarely do we stop and go, what would it be like to bring another human being that I have to care for 24/7 into the situation I'm in right now? Like physically imagine having a child right now. So if you don't have a baby yet, this is really something you need to be thinking about. A lot of postpartum overwhelm, anxiety, and depression just comes from the fact that people just did not realize what they were signing on for. You're sleep deprived. You've got another human being relying on you 24/7. Your whole life has completely turned upside down. There's things you used to do you can't do anymore. And you haven't really thought it through, and it just suddenly feels so overwhelming. So, I always say to people, envision literally having a child right now. What does your social life look like? What do you do on the weekends? What time do you go to bed? Do you like to take trips? Do you have hobbies that you do on a regular basis? All of these things, how does a baby fit into that? It's not that you can't do those things anymore, but thinking ahead about how a baby would fit into that is going to help you plan that much better. Everything from are you working? Is your partner working? Does your partner work 6 days a week? Like that's how it was for me. Okay, my husband works 6 days a week. I'm having twins. How would having twins right now in my life, okay, when I was pregnant, I would think about this. What would that be like right now when my husband's working 6 days a week and I have no family close by to help? And these things really put stuff into perspective for you, because then you can start to think, okay, you know what, I'm going to need support here, or I'm not going to be able to do this anymore, or financially, maybe we need to do this. So really thinking about the present and using that to guide you in some of the decisions that you're going to make. And then finally, this one's my favorite, you guys, the final pillar of motherhood, the future, okay? If you want to parent with intention and parent purposefully, you need to know what kind of kids you are trying to raise. You need to know what values are important to you and your family. You need to know, what matters to you in every area of life. Like, you are going to have a big hand in raising this little human being. And if you haven't thought ahead of time about how you're going to do that, a lot of times this is what happens, right? When all of a sudden something just comes at you as a parent, you're like, oh, I don't even know how to handle this. Whereas if you've laid out ahead of time all of these things, you've thought about all of these things that are important to you, then from day one, you can parent with intention to raise those kinds of children, right? So for instance, I'll give you an example. With me, one of my biggest things has been, especially if I was having boys, I wanted to raise boys. I hate the term boys will be boys, right? When you see aggressive, rambunctious kids running around and people say, oh, that's just boys will be boys. I just was like, I don't buy that. And we have an epidemic right now of boys being boys. read between the lines, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to get too political or, talk about what's happening in mainstream media right now, but we have an epidemic, okay, of boys being allowed to be boys and nobody calling them on anything that they're doing wrong. And because they were raised from the beginning and nurtured to just go ahead, be boys. It's natural to be aggressive. It's okay. So that to me was super important. When we had our boys, I was like, I'm a mom of 2 boys, and not under this roof. That's not happening. I am raising boys who will not be aggressive, who can be calm, who can control their emotions, who will care for other people's hearts, who, if they, grow up to be around women, will respect women, will be kind to women, will look out for women. This is so important to me. So that was one of my values and one of my husband's values. And so in order to do that, in order to raise boys who are not rambunctious, running around, aggressive, and who are growing up caring for people's hearts, that's an intention I set that I started from day one. I from day one have had that in my mind, that these are the types of boys I'm trying to raise. And so everything that I do in my parenting, the parenting books I choose to read, the child psychology and the attachment theory that I choose to study, is all stemming from my desire to raise a certain type of person. That's just a small example, but that's an example of the pillar of the future, of really knowing what you value and what you are trying to instill in your children. What does your family life look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What are the goals that you have for yourself, and your partner, both for your kids, financially? What does your work life look like? All of those things. Really thinking ahead is going to help you start as you mean to go, right? So if you know what kind of kids you're trying to raise, you know where you're headed, then you're going to know how to start. And then everything that you do from day one can be much more intentional. So that's it, guys. So like I said, we have a whole 4-week coaching and course on these pillars. This is the cornerstone of what we do at Modern Mommy Prep School. So if you are a new or expecting mom and this sounded interesting to you and you think that you and your partner might benefit from really diving deep into this, hit me up, direct message me. You can email me for more information, info@modernmommyprepschool.com, or you can go check out our website, modernmommyprepschool.com. There's a course tab where you can read a little bit more about the course, because it's definitely what I just gave you now in like 10-15 minutes is just like little nuggets from each of those pillars, but we get a lot deeper and help really guide you from that mindset perspective so that you're fully ready to rock and roll when you become a parent, and not just when you become a parent, but that long game of motherhood, right? Helping you thrive as a mom, not just survive in all areas of your life. That's it. I hope that was valuable for you. I hope that was useful for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Like I said, please tag somebody who you think may benefit from this if you know someone who's expecting or is a new mom. And I'll be back here tomorrow. And I'm so excited for tomorrow because I'm going to talk about stories. There's been a lot of talk on my Instagram lately, if you follow me, about especially a lot of moms who already have kids and they're really trying to just get themselves back and really find their true purpose and passion in life. I know I've been having a lot of conversations around women who are just wanting to really do more than be a mom, right? They know that they've got a lot of capacity to do more, make a difference in the world. And I'm going to talk about tomorrow how to start the new year off on the right foot by understanding your story and understanding how that can help you figure out what your purpose is in life and where you're going. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. So come join me tomorrow, and we will see you guys then. Thanks for tuning in.